Welcome. In this explainer, we're going to go inside Chernobyl's Control Room 4 and piece together the final, fateful hour before the world's worst nuclear disaster.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. We start just minutes before the explosion. Picture it. The air in that control room is thick with tension. You've got alarms that are being ignored, dials just flickering with warnings. The team, they're in the middle of this high-stakes safety test, but all these little overlooked glitches, they're signals that something is about to go horribly, horribly wrong.
But look, to really get why this catastrophe happened, we have to first understand the machine at the very heart of it all, a machine that was both a marvel of engineering and, well, a trap waiting to be sprung. On paper, the RBMK 1000 reactor was an absolute masterpiece of Soviet power. I mean, this thing was a gigantic structure of graphite and uranium, and it was designed to be almost entirely self-sufficient. But deep within its very design, it was hiding a critical flaw, a paradox, where the one system meant to shut it down could, under the exact wrong conditions, cause a catastrophic power surge.
Now this is where it gets just wild. The AZ5 button. That was the ultimate safety measure, right? The final failsafe. But, and this is the crucial part, the control rods were tipped with graphite. So pushing that button in a moment of extreme heat wouldn't stop the reaction. It would actually accelerate it for a few critical seconds. The safety system was literally a booby trap.
So let's move on to the test itself and see how a series of compounding human errors pushed this flawed design right past its absolute breaking point.
This timeline, it just lays out the cascade of errors with chilling clarity. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. The safety test, it needed the reactor to be at a specific power level, but the power just plummeted way too fast. So against all regulations, with warnings flashing all over the place, the team starts pulling out the control rods to force the power back up. They were basically taking the brakes off the machine, flying completely blind.
And this is where we hit the point of no return. With the safety systems disabled and most of the control rods pulled out, the reactor's core entered this highly volatile state.
So you hear this term, that the reactor became poisoned. What does that even mean? Well, a byproduct of the nuclear reaction, a gas called xenon, started to build up inside the core. Xenon basically acts like a sponge for neutrons, which makes the reactor incredibly unstable and almost impossible to control. But the team, they ignored the warnings. They were so convinced their Soviet machine was indestructible. The whole balance was just collapsing.
Okay, and here, this is where everything just goes off the rails. The calculated risks become a suicide mission as we enter the final terrifying seconds before the explosion.
The test begins. The turbines are shut off, and instantly, steam pressure just surges beyond comprehension. The shift supervisor, Alexander Akimov, he realizes the core is completely out of control. And in this moment of just pure desperation, he shouts for the one thing he thinks can save them, the AZ5 emergency shutdown button.
At 1:23 and 40 seconds in the morning, the button is pressed. It's the last resort.
And as those control rods descend into the super unstable core, those graphite tips we talked about, the ones on the end, they displace the water coolant, and they trigger that fatal flaw.
In just 5 seconds, the trap is sprung. Instead of cooling down, the reaction spikes catastrophically. And then, 2 massive explosions rip through the facility. The first is steam, but the second is nuclear. The 1,000-ton steel lid of the reactor is blown clean through the roof. The core is just exposed to the open air. In an instant, the entire facility is transformed into a ticking radioactive time bomb.
But the disaster didn't end with the explosion. Not by a long shot. In the super politically charged atmosphere of the Cold War, it unleashed not just radiation, but a wave of secrecy and denial. And this slide really shows the two starkly different realities. On one side, you've got the official Soviet story, a minor incident quickly contained by heroic firefighters. The reality, a full-scale meltdown, a cloud of lethal radiation spreading across Europe, and a government desperately trying to hide a truth it couldn't possibly bury.
The true cost, of course, was human. Families were given these vague, false explanations for why their loved ones died. Medical reports detailing radiation sickness were completely sealed. Survivors were ordered to stay silent, threatened with prison if they ever spoke out. The legacy of all that suffering would go on to impact generations.
Today, Reactor 4 is entombed in this massive concrete and steel sarcophagus. It's a permanent, grim monument, not just to the explosion itself, but to the thousands of lives that were changed forever. It's a stark reminder of a history that can never,
ever be erased.
You know, the story of Chernobyl is such a dark and powerful lesson. It forces us to confront that razor-thin line between human ingenuity and human error. And it leaves us with this one really critical question. When does our absolute faith in our own creations become our greatest vulnerability?